A team of adventurers walked slowly and casually through a thick forest as they cautiously moved forward in search of monsters and other prey. However, as they walked, the ground beneath them began to vibrate and thunder. The team immediately steeled themselves as they prepared to face what they believed to be a powerful and fearsome monster. Moments later, a large and terrifying Chaos-class ancient rhino erupted into the open and then turned to face them. Fear immediately poured down the backs of everyone in the team. "You sure we could take this?" "That thing is Chaos level," said one of them. "I don't think we're going to have a choice," said another. The rhino and the adventurers then stood quietly in the pathway and stared at each other for several moments, neither one moving nor blinking at all. Eventually, though, the rhino sat down and then cocked its head as it looked at the now confused adventurers. "Oh, thank the devs, you're here," said the rhino happily. The adventurers looked at him in confusion. However, they didn't lower their guard. The rhino quickly picked up on this. "Oh, I'm sorry. Were you guys here to slay me and take the loot?" he asked. The adventurers looked at him in perplexity. Yeah, kinda," said one of them. "And you think you have to fight me to get to it, right?" The adventurers all nodded as one. "Yeah," they said, their confusion growing as they did. The rhino smiled at this. "Ah, that would be where the disconnect is. I'm not actually here to fight you, as the loot isn't mine. Even so, I was wondering if all of you could help me with something," he said. The adventurers partially lowered their weapons in continued confusion. "What exactly did you have in mind?" asked one of them. The rhino wiggled his but slightly and said, "Well, you see this heavy armor I'm wearing? Yeah, it's really been chafing me a lot lately. So I was wondering if you could help me take it off? If you could, that'd be swell." The adventurers fully lowered their weapons as they looked at him in disbelief. "You literally want us to help you take your armor off?" asked one of them. "Yes, please. You'd be a peach if you did," said the rhino. He then sat down again as he smiled at the team. Eventually, deciding that it wouldn't hurt to give it a try, they slowly, carefully approached the rhino and studied his thick plate armor and marveled at it. They soon put their weapons away and began to pull at it, but it wouldn't budge. "Yeah, I've already tried doing that. I think you're going to have to beat on it a little as it's really, really stuck," said the rhino with a chuckle. It wasn't long before the team mage began casting water spells to help lubricate the armor as the others in the team summoned pry bars and other devices to help loosen the armor. Eventually one plate, then another loosened and fell off until the rhino was completely freed from the heavy plate armor. It then danced around joyfully at finally being free of its heavy imprisonment. "Oh, that feels wonderful. Oh, you guys are the best," he exclaimed. "You're welcome," said one of the adventurers. The rhino then smiled at them and said, "You guys have no idea how long I've been trying to get that off. I put it on one day and then forgot to take it off at night, and, well, it just kind of got stuck there after that. Couldn't get it to come off anymore. So I really appreciate you guys doing this for me. Also, if you want, you can keep the armor. I don't need it." The adventurers then watched as the rhino turned and pranced off into the forest again and vanished. After looking at each other briefly, they quickly divided up the shed armor and then started moving down the trail again. However, a short ways later, they encountered an armored gorilla that was tied to a tree. "Hey, friends, can you help a guy out?" said the gorilla. The team looked at him in confusion and asked, "How can we assist? Can you get these chains off me? They're really starting to chafe my skin." The team looked reluctantly at each other and then decided that it wouldn't hurt to free Tay Gorilla. So Tay worked quickly and soon succeeded. As soon as they did, the gorilla turned to them and bowed gratefully. "Thank you for freeing me. I was afraid I'd be stuck here forever," he said. "So how did you get trapped?" asked one of the men suspiciously. The gorilla laughed with embarrassment. "It was a spell gone bad. So totally my fault," he replied. The team mage laughed at this. "I know how that goes," he said with a chuckle. "Indeed. Well, if you don't mind, I'll be off again." However, as he began to turn, he heard swords and bows rattle. Turning back, he noticed that the team had drawn their weapons. He then sat down and studied them curiously. "Oh, my apologies. Were you looking for something?" he asked. "Yeah, loot. You got any?" said one of the adventurers. The gorilla shrugged. Sorry, lads, I don't have any. However, if you're interested, I can give you a tip on where to find some. Just go up the way, in the direction you're already going, and you'll find yourself a dragon. Wake him up and give him some coffee, and he'll give you a reward. The poor chap is so drowsy all the time that he almost never moves from his spot, he said. Deciding to take the gorilla's recommendation, the team thanked him, waved goodbye, and then headed further down the trail as he headed off into the forest. To the team's surprise, exactly as the gorilla had said, they found a dragon off to one side who was sound asleep atop a large pile of gold, jewels, and other treasures. But instead of giving him some coffee as was suggested, they rushed over, rolled the sleeping dragon aside, took all of his gold, and then ran away before he could wake up. Shortly after this, the dragon stirred, stretched, and then began walking down the trail in the direction that they had gone. As he did, he ran into the rhino waiting for him. Ah, I see you're awake again, said the rhino. The dragon snorted. Yes, thankfully I am. And I also see that you got your armor off again. The rhino nodded. Yes, those kids are really helpful with that. The dragon chuckled. Aren't they all? They even helped me out by taking my gold. He then grunted and said, Pesky stuff. If I'd known that it'd put me to sleep every time, I'd never have taken it. But if you ever get insomnia, it's great stuff to have around. The rhino laughed. Yes, it is. He then looked over in the direction that the team had gone and asked, So, do you think they'll ever figure out? The enchanted gold, I mean. Just then the gorilla appeared out of the forest. Hey, did that group of adventurers come through here and steal your gold? He asked. The dragon nodded. Yes, they did. Why? The gorilla chuckled. It doesn't look like they got any further than the others before them. They're all totally passed out on the trail, just a little over that way, he said, pointing over his shoulder. The dragon then shook his head and chuckled. They just never learn, do they? Well, that's fine with me. So, anyone up for adventure tonight? He said. Again, protested the rhino. We had adventure last night, and the night before, and all of last week. I'm really getting tired of the stuff. True, but you can't argue over free food, replied the gorilla. The rhino snorted at this. Oh, yes, I can. But, alas, if that's all we have, then that's what we eat. However, this time I'm putting barbecue sauce on them. The other two looked at him in confusion. Why would you ever do that? Asked the dragon. The rhino pursed his lips. Because you guys have no idea what good flavor is, he retorted. The gorilla furrowed his brow at this. Hey, adventurer is adventurer, he replied. Again the rhino snorted. Fine, you eat your adventure plain. But not me. I want mine to actually taste good, he said as he stormed off into the woods. The gorilla and the dragon then looked at each other briefly. Do you think we should add a little salt this time? Asked the gorilla. Maybe, replied the dragon. If we do, we should probably use a little Himalayan pink salt. I hear it really brings out the flavor.